Hey everybody, welcome again to another episode of Disability Landscape. We're happy to be back in the studio. With me, as usual, is my co-host Mark Knudsen. And Mark, we have a longtime friend of yours. Who do we have today?
Yeah, this next individual I thought would be appropriate to have now because he has a stand-up comedy experience, and he promised he's not going to slap us, and we can't slap him. So I thought, being that's in the news, we would talk to him about his comedy experience, and also now in the last few years, he's having to start learning to live with a disability, and that. So let me introduce Joe Tanner. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah. So I guess we'll talk about the comedy. We'll leave the fun stuff for later. But let's kind of just start off with your disability, because it just recently you've noticed your disability in that.
Yeah, it's been probably about 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Well, maybe a little longer than that. Let's 5 to 6.
Yeah.
And it's called functional movement disorder.
Okay.
And they don't really know what causes it. It could be a brain injury. It could be something where I know one of the guys that has it. He had an operation, a back operation, and he suffered a sort of a stroke, and that caused his to kick in. It can be an emotional thing that happens. Say if you had a disaster in your family, it could be emotional. It'd be enough to kick you off.
Emotional, interesting. Yeah.
It could be something like that, or like I said, an injury, or it could be like a malfunction, like I was saying in that operation. So, and they don't know really what caused mine. They didn't know what I had. Some of the doctors just put their hands up saying, you have ataxia, you have MS, you have something.
Spin the
Parkinson's. Yeah.
Just so they could put a label on it.
Yeah, and then they get you out of the office. Well, we told him what he's got.
Yeah.
Right.
You walked away there very upset, and I'd rather have somebody tell me you got this, if it's something terrible or not, because at least you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And the brain is so complex that it may be something that can be fixed, but they don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How did you? I would imagine your day was going, or something was going on. What did you first notice that you thought, well, this just isn't right here?
Well, I was a mailman for about 25 years in Minneapolis. And North Minneapolis has got homes with stairs, 25 stairs long, going up.
Right, yeah.
And I had fallen down a couple times, and I thought, well, maybe it was a slick spot, maybe it was something else. And I just kind of left that out in the background. It's like, well, all the mailmen fall, you always do.
Right, yeah.
And
part of the business.
Yeah, and my wife and I were at Cub Foods, and we were in the produce section. Not that that's important, but that's where we were, and all of a sudden my feet started crisscrossing. Just out of, and you were dipping and diving like you were in a boxing match. And she goes, "What are you doing?"
And could you tell you were doing that?
Well, it was very physical. You could tell. It was very obvious.
I would think so. Yeah.
So it was kind of like a duck walk.
Like a duck walk, and
Thanks, Charlie.
So she
Whack
just
me
said,
up.
"What are you doing?" And I said, "I don't know what I'm doing." And that's kind of when it's like something's goofy here, because your legs shouldn't be doing that.
No.
You should be. So that's kind of where I first noticed it, was at the store, and then it just would continue on, and it happened at work.
When it first started, like you said, you were at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Did it just last for a little bit, and then you started walking regular again? So you just thought, well.
Yeah, and I guess we'll call these, just to be easier, we'll call it an episode. If you start having an episode, they last. It could be 30 seconds. It could be 5 minutes. It's never hours.
Sure.
And it doesn't hurt.
Okay.
But it's just, why aren't I walking like I was 5 seconds ago, and all of a sudden you're doing that stuff again?
Yeah.
And people look at you like you're drunk or you're on drugs or something like that.
Right.
And it's like, you're not, you're fine. But, and one of the ways the doctor told me to, once they finally figured it out, just tell people the hardware is your brain, your hardware is working, it's sending a message out in the software, which would be your hands and legs. They're not getting the message. So if I tell myself, hey, I want to go sit like this, I might do this.
Sure.
Okay.
And it looks almost like you're having, I don't want to say a seizure, but uncontrolled movement, maybe is a better way to describe it.
Yeah.
And you get the looks, and I don't care. I'm very open with what I have. If people say, Are you drunk? No, I have functional movement disorder. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So it could be described as, say, like misfiring neurons.
Yes, that's
Okay.
a good way to call it.
How long did it take for the doctors to come up with that diagnosis? Because I remember, I thought it was just recently I saw you were down at Mayo or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, you got to remember when I'm kind of a Facebook junkie where
Right.
I could be driving through somewhere, and if we're at Mayo, I click Joe's at Mayo. So it doesn't
Right.
always mean I'm there. So if it says I'm at Hardee's, I'm not. I might be just driving by Hardee's.
Yeah.
But I was.
How long did it take for them to diagnose you?
That's a good question because I'm not sure. I just know I saw doctor after doctor after doctor, and they would keep telling you, you have nothing, you have this, you have that. One guy at the U told me I had ataxia, which I don't know what ataxia really is. It's a form of this.
Okay.
And I left there and thinking, okay, I got ataxia, and I walked. They sent me down to the U to be evaluated or talked to. And when I walked in this large conference room, there were all these people in there, probably 50 people, and they were all walking around like me. And I thought, this is it. I have ataxia. And it was like, my people, I'm home.
Right, yeah,
Your leader is here. It's the land of the misfit
that-
boys.
That's Joe. Your leader's
and,
here.
and then I saw the next guy in line, and he says, you don't have ataxia. He goes, I don't even know why they sent you here. Well, then you get angry because you've been told once again, you have this. What do you, then it's like
Right.
swept out from under your feet. You have this, now you don't have this. We don't know what you have. So I set something up with the U, or not the U, the Mayo Clinic, and I got a visit down there. And I guess it's kind of hard to get a visit to the Mayo Clinic, but
Yeah.
for whatever reason, they heard my symptoms and they brought me down, and that's where they
Oh,
came
really?
up with this functional movement disorder. But it took 3-4 visits with them before, because they had you walk and they have you do this and they film things and they have you pick things up, and they finally came up with this is what you have. It's functional.
So you were, instead of making an appointment, you were invited to the Mayo.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Which is a rarity.
Yes. So, and
Which
it
is good and bad in a way. If you're invited to the Mayo, you got some serious stuff.
you got some
going.
serious crap
You
going
got
on.
some
so.
serious stuff, but at least you're getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what they ultimately, in the end, what they did was they bring you to what's called a boot camp. And the boot camp was almost not quite a year out, but it's that packed. So you had to go, I'll say 7-8 months before your appointment was able, before you were able to visit.
Oh, jeez.
And
Oh,
they-
you had to do this boot camp.
yeah, and you had to stay down there for a week. So, and what is 2.5 hours? I don't know how far that is, but
Yeah.
that's, I had to take the week off work, and I was still working as a mailman.
Right.
And I had to take the week off work, and then they send you down there, and it's almost like a physical therapy
Sure.
area, and they send you through all these different things. They evaluate how you walk. They film you the day you come in, and they film you the day you leave to show progress. And there was progress,
Okay.
but they said at the end, they said, well, you're cured. And that's wrong. There's not really a
You're
cure for
cured.
this.
Right.
What they do, they give you tips and techniques and tricks. I don't know if tricks is the right
Okay.
word.
Right.
But like if I start having
Coping measures. or
yeah, if
whatever.
I start having something I need to cope with,
Yeah.
I might, they said one of the best things to do is just stop if you're walking down the aisle and something's happening, to just pull over and you kind of, believe it, I got muscles in here somewhere. But you tense up, tense your muscles, and you hold it for about 30 seconds, you hold your breath. And then release. And then you do it again. You do that 2-3 times in a row, and you do kind of reboot.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, and most of the time, sometimes you just either have to grab a chair and sit down, or you just
Okay.
have to say screw it and fall on the ground and
Just deal with it.
deal with it.
There's no medical or medicinal treatment then.
If there was, they didn't offer it to me.
Okay.
I have some different things. I have the neuropathy, so there's problems with the walking that way.
Sure.
But as far as any medicine, I got gabapentin. They said that could help take the pain from the neuropathy, and maybe that'll help you walk better. So again, I still think they're just throwing darts.
Right.
I have gabapentin. We are good friends.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. So one thing, it was neat. When we went down to the Mayo, they said I'm bow-legged when I walk.
Huh.
Okay. I've always been told I'm bow-legged. Okay?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine.
Sure.
And I thought it was just part of the road. Too many cowboys or cowboys
Yeah,
or horses
'cause
or whatever.
now that you mentioned, I remember
Yep.
looking, and I noticed that too. That,
Yep.
Yeah,
Well, and they said you're bow-legged. That's wrong. And they said part of the reason I'm bow-legged is because my feet they don't walk like this. They walk almost touching each other, not pigeon-toed, but they're bumping each other.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's forcing your knees out, and that's causing you to trip. So one of the techniques they said is you have to walk with make a conscious effort to walk with your feet apart, and your gait, I guess they're calling it your gait. And they said also, when you walk, look what you're doing here. And they had a film of me and I'm walking, looking at it. And they said, look what you're doing. I said, yeah, I'm walking. Yeah, but you're swinging your arm. Yeah, that's what everybody does. Well, what about the other arm? They said, you're not swinging both arms, and that's a balance thing. That's why we do that.
Interesting.
And they said, you've got to remember to swing this right arm. And so that's something my wife and the kids will say, Dad, swing your arms. And, and sometimes it's better if we go to the store, just let's leave Dad in the car. So I got the handicap placard, so I mean, I always do get good spots, but I can't keep up with them physically. In the store, the walking's hard. Sometimes I'll use the scooter and
And they're done half the time that you are.
yeah, and then they're already back in the car by the time I get in the scooter and everything else. Where are you? We're in the car. Oh, sorry.
I'm done. Yeah, see
Yeah.
you later.
Yeah.
I'll just follow you home.
Yes.
So is it a progressive type disease then, or?
It's not really supposed to be.
Okay. So basically what it is now.
Yeah, this
Is
is
what
all the
it's
better
been.
I'm going to get, Mark, and you're seeing it right here. This is me at
Yeah, let's just be straight. You
Yeah,
didn't
boom.
get any better,
This is
Joe.
And I'll admit, my first inclination was this: do people mistake it for Parkinson's?
yes, and I've got the shakes, and I was kind of holding my hand here, but this hand will shake and this arm will shake a little bit. They mistake it for a lot of things, and this just happened about a week ago. I had gone over to see some friends on Easter Sunday. Easter was last week before.
Yeah.
And I went over there and they had some ham for me because my wife's out of town, so I didn't get any ham.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, they had some. Come on over and get some ham. And the person's sister was there. And, I left and then I talked to her. And the next day I said, well, what did your family think of me? Well, they all wanted to know when you had your stroke. First of all, I thought, well, that's BS. I didn't have a stroke. But I remember down at the Mayo when they started teaching me some of the things, it said, am I down here for a stroke? No, you're just
Right.
something else.
But it's treated somewhat as
But
a stroke.
it is. And then the Parkinson's, I've done some reading, it's related to it.
Sure.
It is related to ataxia. And then now the shaking is going on.
Okay.
And I get a lot of people saying, oh, it's Parkinson's.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know how you fellas deal with it. Sometimes it's okay. Come on up and say, what do you got?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I've never gone up to somebody and go, what's the matter with you? I
right,
probably
yeah.
get punched in the beak.
Well, as I have related this story a few times, as a teenager in Target in a wheelchair, a young kid comes up to me and very boldly just says, where are your legs? And I look down and go, my God, they're gone! And scared the crap out of this kid.
Good.
I'm surprised I'm not paying for his therapy bills still.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting because, like, in our situation, is from birth. So yeah, we've gone through all the questions. The most interesting one I had was when my daughter was 7 years old. I was taking her to buy a doll. Daddy promised her a doll. We're going through the mall to get the doll, and my daughter's the type. Get there, get it done. She
Yeah.
wanted to get that doll. And of course, a kid stops me, asks, what happened to your leg? And my daughter knows the routine. I'll stop, talk to him a little bit. She wanted to get to that doll.
I want no part of it.
Yep, she just looked at that kid. He was born that way. Okay, come on, Dad.
We gotta go.
Yeah.
So by the time we reach the ages we're at,
Yeah.
we've heard most all the questions.
Yeah.
This is still relatively new to you.
Yeah. One thing that I'm getting looks at, and I try not to judge people,
Yep.
and I'll use the handicap placard. Okay.
Right.
And and I'm not saying anything, but I can see that you need it.
Yeah.
Right, yours isn't an
Mine
invisible.
isn't, and I look like I'm
You've
okay.
got the invisible
yeah, and you
disability.
would get
Yep.
people at work going, "There's nothing wrong with you,"
Yeah.
because you look physically okay. You got all your parts and everything
Right,
looks
yep.
fine, and yet, what do you mean there's something wrong with you? Why do you need it? And it was kind of like I don't ask again. I don't ask what's the matter with you if they say something's wrong, but it is like an invisible thing in mine, unless
is,
they
that's
see me
right.
doing the walking. Then it's like,
Right.
okay, that guy's messed up.
Well, yeah.
get
I mean,
that.
if they see the placard and look at you, just get out and purposely do the duck walk and get back in.
Yeah. Well, there was one lady, I was sitting at a grocery store somewhere, and I'd gone in and come back out, and I had my placard, and I took it off, and I was getting it, and all of a sudden she got out. She was an older lady, so I don't fault her, I guess. You're always looking for something to do.
Yeah.
But she came out with her handicap placard, and she was shaking at me. You need this to be in there. And I said, I have one. She goes, well, I saw you. There's nothing wrong with you. Okay. I mean, I don't know how to answer back. It's like, to borrow your word, bold. I thought she was being pretty bold. It's like, lady, you don't know. It could be somebody could have a heart problem. They could have breathing problem. They could have asthma.
Absolutely.
You just don't know. I mean, for our situation, it is interesting because people, when we pull up and you're driving, they look at you and they're making all, they're like, oh, is that person really disabled?
Yeah.
But once we start getting out the door and they see the wheelchair, then they're like, okay, yeah, nice weather.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
got.
Yeah, nice to see you again. No problem.
Yeah, so it's.
So, all right, we've talked about what's happened to you lately. Let's talk about how you and Mark have a connection.
Yeah, let's get to the fun stuff, though.
Yeah, we're both the two probably funniest guys in Minneapolis area.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
I've not seen his trophy yet, so I'm not sure.
Okay, stand-up comedy.
But you've been doing it. I just relatively
Yeah.
been doing it for a few years. But you were kind of around the
Probably about 20,
Minnesota
20,
scene when it was a
25 years.
Minnesota
Yeah,
scene.
yeah. Went back when Mitch Hedberg and some of these guys were around. Mitch, of course, took his life. But so it's been about that long. But I got to hook up with Scott Hansen and Louis Anderson and Jeff Cesario and Dave Mordahl and all these guys,
Oh, right,
and Kathy
Dave.
Ladman.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
And Louis, I met Louis during a contest. KQRS had a radio contest where Are You Funny Enough to Open Up for Louis Anderson? And it was back before we didn't have mini cameras or telephones. We had the VCR tape, so I had to make a VCR tape in my basement without telling my wife because she would have, hey, you're not funny. Okay.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
and then you had to make this 3-minute clip. So I made it and I sent it in, and I was on the route one day and she calls and you sent it into KQ and they picked. And she said, Scott Hansen, whoever that is, called and you're on his show tonight. It was a Friday. And what they did, there was about 300 people that mailed in different tapes, and they picked 30 of us. So I was happy just to be picked.
Yeah.
And we went down there, and it was like almost like an American Idol because they said, okay, you 10 are up here, and you went up, you did your 2 minutes.
Oh, really?
And then they said, okay, you 2 advanced, the rest of you, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And then you'd meet the next night, and then the next week again. And I was, like I said, I was happy just to be picked. Well, then the winner got to open up for Louis at Northrop Auditorium on New Year's Eve.
Oh, wow.
So you go from doing your little comedy in front of your family at the dinner table to here's 4,200 people out there, and it was just like, whoa.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And Louis ended up picking, out of the 10 of us that remained, he picked 6 of us. So he came on KQ and he said, I don't have just one winner, I have 6. So 6 of us got to open up for Louis. And we all got to do 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, whatever it was.
Oh, cool, that's cool.
And it was neat. Well, then the one guy, he said, here's a great idea. He goes, you're a mailman. So he goes, we're going to be the Lowry mailman. That's what they got off Tom Bernard. I used to send in letters to Tom Bernard and the morning crew, and they called me the Lowry mailman. So they said, you're going to be the Lowry mailman. So show up wearing your mailman stuff and have your bag. And so I go down there, and Louis comes out. He goes, what the heck is this? Because we're supposed to dress like we are, these guys. And I said, Pash told me to do this. He goes, that was stupid. And so it's like, crap.
Right.
But whatever.
It is.
It's all in the past.
Now, when you started work, what comedy clubs, what was the scene back then? What were the comedy clubs?
Scott had almost every comedy club there was.
Oh, did he? Where
Yeah,
were
he
they?
had-
Where was he
St.
at?
Anthony, Maine was his main one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we went down there for open mics. There was a couple places. There really wasn't a lot. There were small little ones. Acme, I don't even know if Acme was here yet.
Okay.
So you kind of had to know who was who, and you go down there and
right.
do your 2-3 minutes and get on stage. And I tailed Scott for about 2 years, and after that, it's like I think I could do this myself. I think.
Really? Okay.
So I opened my own room, and it was over in northeast Minneapolis. It was.
Oh, you did open your own room?
Yep.
Okay.
And we had Dwight York, if you know Dwight.
Yeah, right, yeah.
He was our first headliner.
Okay.
And you could have pulled this bar and restaurant out of the area it was in a very kind of not a good area. Could have pulled this place out and plopped it into a good area, it would have been great because it had the coolest stage and the lights and everything. And it didn't work. We had 53 people our first night. And it was like, okay, well, whatever. But it didn't work down there, so then we went to in Anoka or Coon Rapids. It was called the Tequila Berries
Oh,
restaurant.
certainly, yeah.
And they used to serve all-you-can-eat prime rib on Thursday nights.
Yep.
So they had the loft. So it sold, it became a different restaurant. So I went there and presented the idea of we could do comedy in the loft, and we called it Laughter in the Loft. And it went there for about 6 years. And Scott was so angry with me because you were opening another comedy room
Sure.
in his neighborhood.
Territory.
Yeah, and it was like nobody owns it. And you know, at one time, Scott, you were the new guy.
Right. Yeah.
And we did make up before he passed, but and then at the end, I would go see him, we'd take a selfie. And he'd say, I know why you're doing this. And I said, why? He goes, in case I croak. He's got a picture of us. And I said, no, I'm taking it in case I croak first, and you got a picture of me and you.
Right.
But it worked well, and we had, we would average like 80 to 100 people on a weekend night. And
Okay.
Yeah.
we did it Friday and Saturdays, and we kept the seats cheap, $10. And
Yeah. Yeah, because now for the different comedy clubs, Acme's still around,
yeah,
and then you got Sisyphus
yep,
down by Dunwoody,
yep.
House of Comedy
Lots of comedy.
at the Mall of America, Laugh Camp, open mic, Laugh Camp,
Yeah,
which is over in downtown.
yeah. And isn't there a place?
And then a new one just recently last fall that does clean comedy, Gutties, which is
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
trying to think of. I know John Russell does a lot of stuff with them.
Oh, does he? Okay, yeah, because he's in. Kyle Yamada is the
Yeah,
owner of it, also as a comic.
yeah,
He does, at Southdale.
yeah. One thing with the comedy, what I've had to adapt, you know, we can call it stand up, sit down, whatever you want to do. But
Right.
I would get up there, and I was doing my dips, you know, and it wasn't a good sight. And it's hard because the people are looking at you thinking, what's the matter with that guy? So what I tell them is that I had a bad knee.
Yeah.
And so I said, what I'm going to do, instead of, did you get to see Joe Tanner do stand-up last night? No, we saw Joe Tanner do sit-down. And I'll just have a stool, and I'll just do sit-down comedy because I'm not going to fall. I don't want to fall down in front of those people.
Right, yeah.
But going down steps is always an issue. And some of these stages are only 3 foot high.
Yeah,
but
tell me about
it's
it.
3 steps. It's like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I've had to adapt that a little bit.
Yeah,
and-
because I mean, I've got a portable ramp, which is good for 2, maybe 3 steps.
Yeah.
But you get some of the comedy clubs, and it's.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, House of Comedy, they do have their own ramp
Yep.
that they bring out because their stage is quite high. But
Yeah.
they do have a.
Michael Thorne, yeah, I did. I was at House of Comedy. It was right when the COVID was kind of being lifted. I went out
Okay.
there for just a Tuesday night thing to do some time.
Oh, for the open mic on
Yep.
Tuesday nights. Yep.
Michael Thorne, do you know Michael?
I do know Michael. Yeah.
Okay, he's got a place out in Andover where it does have steps, and they have a railing on there, so that's very helpful.
Oh, is it?
And
Okay.
until you need the railing, you know, if you don't need it, you don't even notice it.
Right. Right.
But if you, like, it's easier for me to go downstairs backwards, but that doesn't look good at comedy.
Oh,
You know,
right.
you want to
right,
get
yeah.
up on stage and go, oh yeah, yuck, 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 you know,
Yeah,
do all
and
that
then
stuff,
you're-
and
And then you're backing down the steps.
yeah, then you're backing down.
They expect you to like run off the stage. And, yeah, I had a good set, you know. And
I just did some time with Spencer Dobson. And Spencer, I was middle, and Spencer's going to headline. So he goes, I need you to bring my glass of water. He had a glass of water. He didn't have a bottle. He goes, I need you, when you get up there, to bring my glass of water up there and set it on the table behind you so that he didn't have, because he's a prop comic. And he didn't want to have to carry all that stuff up there, plus a glass of water. So I thought, you're asking the guy who's shaking. So his glass of water ended up about that full.
Yeah. I was
Sorry,
gonna
dude.
say.
You asked the wrong guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Where else have you performed outside of Minnesota?
yeah, I've been Iowa a couple times. Joe Roberts got some stuff going on there, and then I've been with Louis. He had us come out to California and also Vegas. That's
Oh, did
probably
you
been
really? So you done-
dozen times out there, so I can claim that I'm a national touring comic.
So what size of crowds were you performing in front of then with?
Well, it depends on what part of the year you went. I mean, Louis' auditorium held like about 600. Sometimes it might be a full house. Other times it's only 200, and he's like, I only got 200 people here. That's still fun for
Right.
the smaller
comics, yeah.
guys like us. I know he needs it to make his money, but
Yeah.
so
yeah, you weren't filling Target Center, but
right.
So he had his own.
He had his own theater. Yep.
Oh,
it
I
was-
didn't realize he had his
Yep.
own.
And it was at a couple different casinos where you have it, and
out in Vegas.
yeah.
Okay.
yeah. And I know the first time I went out there, it had a little program with your name on it and stuff like that with Louis Anderson and whoever, and Joe Tanner. And I came out, and we were standing out there, and this lady came up, and she just goes, "You are so great. It was so fun watching you. Would you autograph my ticket?" And I autographed my ticket. My wife's in the background just going like, "Oh my gosh, come on, him?
Right.
That's my husband."
Yeah. It's tough enough to live with him already, but how that head and all that.
They had a promo picture of me dressed in my mailman outfit for the comedy show. And it was called Cabin Boy because the background was a cabin scene they were using for a commercial. And they said, "We're going to stick you in this." So I was called Cabin Boy, mailman. And I brought it to work. And one of the guys took copies of it and he pinned it all over the post office. And one lady took offense to it. And all I did, I had my shirt unbuttoned like down to here, and I had my shoes off, and they said, "Make it look sexy." So, sexy, right?
Yeah.
So I was just sitting there like this on this couch, and somebody turned me in, and they said, "That is a bad, inappropriate thing for the post office. We can't have that."
Jeez.
So I got called in the office, and my boss goes, "I have to call you out on something." And I said, "What?" "This picture of you, this cabin boy, somebody complained that it's dripping with sexuality."
Well, thank you.
I laughed,
Yeah.
and the woman goes, "Yeah, you, right?" It's like, "Yeah, what do you mean me?"
Dripping?
Dripping now.
I'll take one
My
drip,
wife-
maybe.
Yeah,
but
my
a
wife
drip-
laughed about it, but
What is the worst experience you've had with a heckler?
I'd have to go a long ways back.
That's okay.
But it was at Scott Hanson's St.
Okay.
Anthony, Maine. The kid up there in front of me, he got up, and I swear every other word was the F-bomb. And his family was just in front. Isn't he just funny, funny, funny? And I followed him. And I got up there, and I said the word fart. And this woman in front, who was his mom, she goes, "Oh my God, you're filthy." And I didn't know what to do because it was the first couple times I've been up, and I just said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "That's horrible. That's not even funny." And I just said, "Your kid stands up here and says the F-bomb
Yeah,
80
yeah.
times, and you're clapping, and I say fart." And I just said, "That's it. That's my time." And I walked off stage. And Hanson chewed me a new one. He goes, "Don't you ever, ever, ever let them get the best of you like that." And he
Yeah.
goes, "You should have somehow just, but you're too new. You don't know what
Right,
to
right,
block
yeah.
her
Right.
out. Or just shut up, you're drunk," or whatever you're going to say to him. And so that was probably the worst because I got off stage thinking I can't handle this.
Right, yeah.
And so that was probably the worst.
Okay. Well, great. No, this has been great. Our time has runneth out. I'm always amazed how quick the time does go.
Yeah, it
on
did
that.
go by fast.
Mark still has a job, even though Zimmer, who had worse clock management, doesn't. So, we will leave it at that. I want to thank Joe Tanner for coming in. My co-host, Mark Knudsen. I'm Charlie Brose. Thank you for watching Dsiability Landscape. We'll see you next time.